It's time for the Las Vegas Sportsline, brought to you by the Sunset Station with sports director Chuck Esposito. Presented by WagerTalk.com.
All right, here we go. We've only got an hour, so we better get rolling on this right away because it's obviously a very big day. The format I outlined last night for the show kind of went out the window this morning because of the Supreme Court ruling that took place. I'm Dave Koken. Marco D'Angelo's here. Clay Baker's at the controls. Chuck Esposito in a little bit. We'll talk about the Golden Knights and the basketball as we go along in the show. But obviously the big story, the Supreme Court has struck down the law on illegal gambling. As far as sports wagering is concerned, it's now up to the individual states as to what they want to do. And obviously it is exploding all over the internet. This is a huge story.
Oh, absolutely, Dave. But the thing of it is I see some of these guys on Twitter, and they think this is going to happen overnight. And this is not going to happen overnight. There might be a couple states that New Jersey's been planning for this for quite some time, so they definitely got a big leg up. But there's going to be...
And West Virginia, I think, has also been planning on it.
Yeah, and if you remember, Dave, West Virginia, it was the first state that got slot machines at the racetrack, so they know how to do this. But from somebody that came from Pennsylvania that did get their slot machines at the racetracks, this is a process that's going to take time because they're going to issue license to who can be the books. And there's going to be a lot of people bidding on those licenses because those franchise licenses are going to be worth a ton of money. And, so to see who gets them and everything and get how red tape works with the government. But I am excited as you could possibly be to have nationwide betting and take that taboo off of sports wagering. Because, that's something, a lot of people look to, you're gambling. No, we're trying to make a living, guys, trying to find edges, and now we can help even more people.
Yeah, I don't think it's been looked upon as taboo by the American public for
it's changed.
long time.
It's been changing.
And part of the reason for that is that gambling itself, forget the sports gambling aspect, it's just gambling itself is no longer taboo. There's 48 out of the 50 states have some form of legalized gambling. The only two that don't, unless things have changed, are Utah and Hawaii. And I can tell you that they gamble plenty in Hawaii.
Okay?
Oh,
they do.
Oh, boy.
I know books that are still laying 120. I have customers in Hawaii that tell me, and I said, you got to be kidding me.
Mike, going back to the days where those of us who've been in our end of the business for a long time will tell you that the Hawaii has always been actually a stronghold as far as customer bases are concerned. Tons of customers out there. Per capita, it might have been one of the highest in the country. So it's existed there. It just hasn't been legal. Utah, kind of another story. They're a little different. But the whole specter of this being something, a backroom dealings and the guy with the visor and stuff like that, that went away when the lotteries came about. You could go in any store and gamble. Literally, that's what it is. You can call it buying lottery tickets. You're gambling.
Right.
Okay? You might as well have a pair of dice in your hand, only you don't get as good of odds. And that's really lifted the veil. Plus the fact that all you have to do is watch any football game, and there's going to be some mention of it. ESPN even they've been putting the spreads on the screen now for on the graphic roll for some time now. It's to me, it's a case of good job by the Supreme Court recognizing that it's 2018, and you can't pretend that something doesn't exist when it does.
Oh, absolutely. And the money that it's going to bring to the government, this is free money. It's going to come that we're going to have. Let's put it to something good use. You look at it, Dave, and when I said taboo, look back that you've done a lot of radio. You've done a lot of radio here in Vegas.
Oh, yeah,
you've done a lot of radio outside of Vegas. Remember when we had to do those shows that were outside of Vegas? We were talking about who was going to win the game, but we weren't talking, we're talking around point spreads.
Listen, when we were doing ProLine, which we did for decades on the USA Network, we could not mention certain words on the air. It always cracks me up when people say, you guys used to say this, that. Yeah. No, actually we didn't, because USA Network wouldn't let us. They wouldn't air the show if it, for instance, had the word bet. Mm-hmm. If we taped a segment and the word bet or the word lock or anything along those lines, if those words even got mentioned, they wouldn't air the show. We had to go through it with a fine-tooth comb beforehand to make sure that none of these taboos were violated. So for those of you who said, you guys used to say a lot, no, we didn't, okay? And it's as simple as that. We didn't because we couldn't. Maybe we would have if we could have, but we couldn't. Look, the entire world has changed. It's as simple as that. Welcome to 2018. I agree this is not going to happen overnight, but it will start to happen quickly. There will be a domino principle in effect here. Once it goes into effect in a couple of states, a lot more are going to follow. And I would say that within 5 years, at least half the country, probably more, will have legalized sports wagering. And I'm not going to pretend it's not good for those of us in this end of the business. It is. So if you're saying, yeah, you guys are happy about this because you're going to benefit for selfish reasons, yes. Not going to lie about that. It's going to be good for business.
It is. You know who else it's going to be good for business? If the other states are smart, which sometimes they're not, but they would go out and get people that already do this and let them run it for them. And,
I think they will.
Go out and get
absolutely think they will.
All of the different, apps that are out there. There's some of these guys. We've got a lot here in Vegas, but there's two big guys here in Vegas that are already national. Yes. International, and they could bring it in a heartbeat to the States.
I think this is actually going to, we'll talk to Chuck Esposito a little bit about this, but I think it's actually going to be good for the local entities because we have the infrastructure in place, and there needs to be someone with that infrastructure operating these things in other states. Well, where are they going to go for it? There's no place else to go. So I think it'll be fine for the casinos here. Anyway, let's get to, we want to get to Chuck quickly today because we have so much to talk about. So let's get right to our Monday 4 at 4.
The Las Vegas Sportsline.
1, 2, bring it to the phone.
Put them fours up. Put the fours up, I said. Do it right now.
Tonight's action is just around the bend, and the guys want to get your night off to a great start.
4.
It's the Las Vegas Sportsline's 4 at 4.
Not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4. Unbelievable.
All right, Rays and Royals, we'll kick it off with them. The Rays off a rather poor performance yesterday. I'm glad it was because I had the Orioles. That was just, it's nice to watch a game like that. You knew it was over in the third innings. Like, this is going to be fun. 17-1. They go on the road to face the Royals, who didn't exactly have a great weekend themselves. You've got a matchup of lefties here. Yarbrough on the mound for the Rays. It'll be Yarbrough and Johnny Holstaff because he's only going to go about 5 innings if they can get 5 out of him. And Eric Skoglund, who's basically a 5 or 6 inning guy for the Royals as well. So 2 lefties battling it out. And the Royals, last I checked, I believe was still a very short favorite in this game.
Yeah, pick your poison here. Lesser of two evils. You got both teams struggling. Tampa 1-6 the last 7. You've got Kansas City 1-5 the last 6. Kansas City does return off of a road trip, and I like to go against teams in that spot. Throw in another stat for you. Kansas City in competitively priced games. And when I say competitively priced, I'm always talking minus 125 to plus 125. This season, they're just 4-12 in that spot. And those are games they're supposed to have a shot in. So I'm going to go against Kansas City here. Neither pitcher has faced the other, is a starter, so no advantage to either team there. I'm going to take Tampa, and they got to be a little embarrassed after yesterday's game, so I think you're going to get a good effort out of them. Take Tampa in this one.
Indians and Tigers matching up, and the Indians are hoping Carlos Carrasco can get back on track. He has been struggling a bit lately, and that certainly gives pause to anyone considering laying a gigantic price. The Tigers lineup a little bit short-handed right now. They've got some nicks on the roster, and the bullpen of late has been a bit on the shaky side for Detroit. So is Cleveland's, for that matter.
Yeah, Cleveland's bullpen is not what we're accustomed to, and they got some injuries on the staff as well.
Andrew Miller's been activated, though.
Okay, in which he changes that whole setup to the bullpen for them. So that is something to watch over the next week, 10 days, and see how much better they improve. But you got Cleveland. They did take 3 out of 4 over the weekend, Dave, and that finally got this team over the 500 mark.
Yep.
So
Lindor is going wild, by the way.
Yeah.
His last 2 weeks, Lindor has been just unbelievable for this team.
Well, I'll tell you what, the whole team's scoring right now. Look at this, 32 runs in the last 4 games. Over the last 6 games, Detroit's been in a win-lose pattern. If you follow that, they're in a lose pattern tonight. And you talked about Carrasco, and overall, his numbers, I agree with you. But if you break it down and look at his road numbers this year, he had 4 starts. His ERA on the road is 2.48, and his WHIP is 0.86. And his strikeout to walk ratio on the road, 32-4 for Carrasco. There's only one way I can look here. The Indians finally got a little bit of momentum. I'm not laying the big number, but they are on the road, which ensures me 9 at-bats. I'll go ahead and lay a 1.5 with Cleveland if I'm playing it.
Oakland and the Red Sox start a series at Fenway Park, and the A's will send the no-hit guy, Sean Manaea, to the mound tonight. And the good news for Oakland is that he's a lefty. And the Red Sox, markedly less production against left-handers this year, about a little more than 2 runs per 9 innings overall. And at home at Fenway, actually a little more than 3 runs per 9 innings less versus lefties than righties. So Manaea could be a tough matchup for them. Rick Porcello on the mound for the Red Sox, and he has gotten back to the form he was showing a couple of years ago. Part of the reason for it appears to be a change in what he is throwing. He is not throwing many four-seam fastballs this season, which he did last year and which he did not have success with. He's gotten back to being more of a sinker ball pitcher, throwing a lot of sliders as well. Adjusting on the fly seems to be a good thing for Porcello because he's done this before where he's made adjustments and had great success doing it. He's very tough. I think the price is a little bit higher than it should be here, but not quite high enough for me to take a flyer with the A's.
Yeah, you look at this when you talk about Porcello. He's pitching like he pitched in the Cy Young season. He's 5-0 in 8 starts, ERA at 2.79. The whip is what's impressive to me, under 1, 0.94. But, Dave, he is coming off his worst outing of the season. The Yankees did get 5 runs off of him in 5 innings. But you look at Boston, how do you feel about, you talked about the no-hitter. This is the team that he no-hit.
Yep.
You know, he got a little chance to get some revenge against him. Oakland, when the total was 9 or 9.5 the last 2 seasons on the road, this team's just 12-33. And you look at Boston, they are 6-3 over the last 9 games, with 2 of those losses coming against the red-hot Yankees. You know, I like Boston. Like you said the line's not high enough for you to jump on the A's. I don't think the line's low enough for me to jump on Boston, but if I had to play it, I do like Boston.
And we'll look at the Mariners and Twins as Minnesota comes back off a pretty good weekend at Anaheim, even though they'd lost a tough game yesterday. They will send Jake Odorizzi to the mound tonight against the Seattle Mariners and Wade LeBlanc. And Odorizzi will not have to face Robinson Cano. That's a big injury for Seattle. Cano gets hit on the hand. Looks like he might need surgery. He's going to be out for quite some time. Serious hit. I mean, if Gordon Beckham has been called up for Seattle, there's a bit of just a tiny drop off there.
Yeah, that is a big hit for Seattle. But you know what? Seattle, Dave, 11 straight games they've been in that win-lose pattern. Guess what? They're in the win pattern tonight. And here's a little stat on Seattle this season. Coming off a loss, they're 11-4 this year. They bounce back big. Minnesota, as you said, great road trip, 7-2 the last 9 games. All on the road, but here they're in a bad spot tonight scheduling-wise. They returned back from the West Coast. They played a late game yesterday, and now they're traveling east, so you lose some time with the time zones. Seattle was on the road yesterday too, but they're only traveling from Detroit, and they had an early afternoon game. So the scheduling favors Seattle. And Wade LeBlanc, you talk about him. He's made 2 starts so far. He's only allowed 1 run, but he's only gone 5 and 4 innings in those 2 starts.
Yeah, that's all I want out of him. He's basically a bullpen guy who's starting.
Exactly. But he did go 4 innings the first one, 5 the second, so it looks like he's getting a little more of a stretch out. So if I can get enough out of him, you know, Jake Odorizzi, he's a guy that he can have good stuff at times, and other times, man, it's just not good.
He's a 5 or 6 inning guy, too, because his pitch counts are always inflated.
And you know what I don't like? I had Minnesota in a game, a big game for me on Saturday. Man, this bullpen makes me hold my breath with them. And I got it done in extra innings, but they did have to use some pitchers this weekend. I'll take Seattle. They're 14-8 in night games this year, and they're averaging just under 5 runs per game, 4.8. And here's a stat for you. When Odorizzi starts at home, and the total was in the range that it is tonight of 8.5 to 10, in his career, just 4-12. I'll take Seattle.
Braves and Cubs, by the way, they are in the 9th inning. The Braves leading 6-4, top of the 9th. Flemingstown Square, Magnum Guest Line is where we'll find Chuck Esposito. Flemingstown Square had a huge Mother's Day turnout yesterday. Just enormous, and everybody seemed to have a great time. They do special event days like that about as well as they can be done at Flemingstown Square. Back to the regular menu tonight, but you've got your Monday special on the prime rib. Excuse me, not the prime rib, but the filet and lobster. So, you know, check it all out at Fleming's Town Square. You will have a great meal and a great time with their outstanding staff down there. Wines by the glass, an enormous